All right, well, this is different, isn't it? First off, at a hotel recording, Wyatt Claypool of National Telegraph allowed me to use his rig to to talk about what just happened over the weekend. Of course, it's the weekend I went away, where all the crazy nonsense went down between Donald Trump, Mark Carney, U.S., Canada, and that is what happened. This is the conversation. Obviously, what happened when we went away for the weekend was, well, Trump pulled out of his conversations with Mr. Mark Carney. Said, "You know what? We're over. It's done. We can't do DST is a non-starter," and that's exactly what took place. And Trump just decided to go away. And the liberal supporters, those who are supportive of this current government, were shouting in the streets, super pumped. Yes, elbows up is back, baby. We're here with the electric. We're stoked. This is what I voted for. Yeah. That's what happened, right? And Mark Carney stuck it to Donald Trump. This is awesome. That's the conversation that happened over the weekend. And we're looking at it and like, are people really that simple minded? Like, people don't really understand negotiations. This is a term that's typically used in negotiations. It's heavily used in the boxing world when two fighters are negotiating a contract of how they're going to fight and who's going to get paid what. Is the element of the A side versus the B side. And the A side is the one who holds all the cards. B side is just trying their best to get what they can so that they can claim they won to a degree the negotiation. And that's what was going off in my head when that conversation was taking place. When I was seeing all these simple-minded people when it comes to this whole relationship between Trump and Carney, it's like, oh, Carney stuck up to him. We ended negotiations. Let's go. And then that was the thought. That was what went through the mind. Then Sunday night hits, and boom, Canada rescinds digital service tax to advance broader trade negotiations with the US. Near the end of the first paragraph says Prime Minister Carney has been clear that Canada will take as long as necessary, but no longer to achieve that deal. To support those negotiations, the Minister of Finance and National Revenue, the Honorable François-Philippe Champagne, announced today that Canada would rescind the digital service tax in anticipation of a mutually beneficial comprehensive trade arrangement with the United States. Consistent with this action, Prime Minister Carney and President Trump have agreed that parties will resume negotiations with a view towards agreeing on a deal by July 21st, 2025. So that took all of 2 days to figure that out. And this is where the left is again trying to like, wait, what happened? Again, comes back to the A side versus the B side. Donald Trump said it himself in an interview just before the weekend hit, was we hold all the cards. We'll see what Canada does, but this is a non-starter. We're going to just stop negotiations because it's a waste of time. And again, the reason why it's frustrating, and people know this already, but I'm just rehashing what's happened over the weekend, is the fact that DST is a retroactive tax dating back to 2022, which would yield the government over $20 million per year from these different tech companies, which was, again, it was anybody making over X amount is going to be subject to this DST tax, which, again, it inherently affected the big tech giants from the States. Specifically, we have Shopify here in Canada, and that's all who that's really, it really was a poignant tax, just finding a different way to crawl and scratch money that wasn't in the Canadian people, even though, however, we know what would happen. DST would go in, and that would end up being passed to Canadian citizens anyway. But again, in the government's eyes, A plus B equals C. There's no idea or thought where the connections and nuance happens, where if we make a decision here, it could affect this, and this, and then down here it'll affect this. There's no thought process on this. This is how the government operates, is we're poor, we need money, private investments fleeing the country, and citizens are fleeing the country, and we don't know where to get the money next. All right, DST. We know we're kind of hitting the limit of how hard we're taxing people here, so let's do a DST on someone who's not in the country. That's how simple their minds are on this. And the frustrating part at the end of the day is what I tweeted out last night, which was it's honestly rather embarrassing when a foreign head of state has done more for Canadians than our current prime minister has over the past 3 months. It's been tax after tax, weird, exorbitant bills that are overreaching. That is what's being done in Canada. And then they want to introduce a new tax, and it took Donald Trump to kibosh that tax. That's the state of affairs here in Canada. And this is probably, I don't know, this is likely something Donald Trump liked. He knew that Mark Carney would bend to his will every step of the way, no matter how much Carney tried to sell it to the Canadian public. We all knew. We've caught anyone who's been covering this for any amount of time. Just it's such an easy call for anyone who's actually paying attention. As far as the elbows up crew, those who support the Liberal Party of Canada, those who support Mark Carney, this is what I find very interesting. When it goes back to the whole situation of the DST being kibosh because Trump said it was a non-starter, that to me shows me that anything in the American interest is going to get done here in Canada. In the American interest. The whole campaign was based on Trump wants to break us, Trump wants to own us, he wants to take our resources, blah, 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 blah. But anything that's really gotten done, for the most part, is because Trump has put the pressure on Canada to get it done. We are essentially doing the exact thing that those who support Carney was hoping it would never happen. Whatever Donald Trump wants to get done, we do. We bend over backwards to make happen. Right now, the only thing that matters in Canada is American interests. And we see Mark Carney trying to align with the European Union. We see Mark Carney trying to align more with the EU. We see Mark Carney trying to align more with the other side of the pond because he has friends over there. He has some cushy connections over there. And he's trying to get away from America as much as possible, which is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard and seen in my life. And that's something to keep in mind because he doesn't like when this happens because it makes him look like a small man. He doesn't want to look like a small man no more. But it comes back to a question I was asked yesterday. It made me think. Josh, what is Canada's national interest? And my answer to that was, well, it comes down to what Canada's identity is first. If you can answer what Canada's identity is, then you can answer what Canada's national interest is. And the Canadian identity right now is nothing. We don't have a true identity in this country. And if no one can agree on what Canada's identity is, how can you agree on what Canada's national interest is? What is it? Most people will go to, it's to maintain sovereignty in the heat of these Trump negotiations. That's not a national interest. National interest is, how are you going to fund your programs? National interest is, how are you going to make money? National interest is, how are you going to make sure you take the tax burden off your citizens? These are some things that apply to national interest, but these are things that no one's ever going to fully agree on. And that's what we're seeing here today. Is we have no national identity. We can't agree on national because we don't have a national identity. We can't agree on what our national interest is. And so if those two things don't exist, then we're just that post-nationalist state floating in the wind, hoping something will happen. And when you have a strong president down south of the border who will kibosh negotiations in order to make his point, well, we are subject to his whims and his whims only at this point. I think as the chief of NATO said, Daddy's home. And he 100%, and forgive the graphic reference, but I think that's exactly what's happening. Trump has stuck his hand up Carney's rear end and is working his mouth like a puppet. That's what's going on here. And that is exactly what we have witnessed and what is taking place currently. So with negotiations ending before the weekend goes out, with the DST being scrapped by Sunday night, who is dictating what's happening here in this country? If we're that soft and if we're that flexible and spineless when it comes to likes of Donald Trump, what else has been going on? And sure, I'll even go back to the previous government. How many people, whether inside the country or outside the country, was dictating what Justin Trudeau was doing? We know Mark Carney was one of those people. And I'll apply that to this situation. Who inside the country versus outside the country are dictating what Mark Carney does? He likes to portray that he knows what he's doing. He likes to portray that he's a strong man. But seeing how he folds anytime he goes to the EU, seeing how he's folding in the face of Donald Trump, who is truly calling the shots here in this country? And this is what the call out is to the official opposition. It's time to be an official opposition that people see as a legitimate option in the face of all this. And you might have to get a little bit meaner, but in the political sense, so that people see a viable option moving forward away from all this craziness. But anyways, have yourselves a good one. I'm out.